Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bay Bolts channel for this episode of Quick Strikes. We have a win to talk about after one loss. The Tampa Bay Lightning win 4-3 in the shootout against the Dallas Stars, giving Lightning fans a little bit of a panic after going up 3-1 and then giving the lead up very quickly. But my name is Michael Wax, joined here as always with my co-host Jake Ricker. Jake, a very heart palpitating game at the end. How you doing?
Michael, play all night. Nice win today. Very happy we got back in the win column, and that just goes to show you how spoiled we are, Michael. Because you were excited to have a win after just one loss. It's only been one game, but a great win nonetheless. You know that you're right. It did give Lightning fans a little bit of heart attack and was not ideal there at the end of the third period, but they find a way to get the job done. And for the most part, this was a really solid game today.
Yeah, so let's talk about the negatives first, because I think there were a lot of positives that we could end this video on. So let's talk about that 40-second stretch where it looked like throughout the night the Lightning were struggling when they were down a man, whether they were on the penalty kill or down 6-on-5. They let up all three goals in that situation. They let up a power play goal, which is very rare for the penalty kill to do, and they let up a ton of chances and two goals down 6-on-5. I don't think that this is something the Lightning need to be overly concerned about in terms of the 6-on-5 stuff. But as far as the penalty kill goes, it wasn't like its normal self. They had Steven Stamkos out there with Barclay Goodrow instead of Blake Coleman. I think that had a lot to do with it. They're not really on the same wavelength in terms of getting to know each other through the penalty kill sphere. But, couple of mental mistakes, not a great period or not a great game when it comes to being outmanned 6-on-5 or 5-on-4.
Yeah, no, that definitely was not ideal for us today. I think some credit does need to go to Dallas. I think they just played really well when they were up with the man advantage, basically. And, they did have a really good power play to start this season, and then they kind of tapered off and came back down to earth, but still a pretty good, decent power play. Jamie Benn is one of the best when it comes to those sorts of situations. He proved that tonight, which is half the reason the Stars even tied this game by the end of the third period. But not too big of a concern for the Lightning. This penalty kill has been so good this year. You mentioned the changing of Stamkos on there. Maybe we see Coleman come back on that line there because obviously it wasn't ideal, I don't think. I don't know why Cooper ended up making that change, but hopefully we maybe see it go back to normal. But, not overly concerning for the Bulls. The biggest concern for me, and this has just been a theme throughout the entire season, is the Lightning. They played a really good first period. They dominated the Stars in the first period. We're up 1-0 at the end of that. And then they played a really good third period. Had a bad last 2 minutes, but a really good third period as well. Second period, not so much. That's where the Stars were actually able to come back and tie that game originally. And it just seems like the Bulls always have that one period where things just go completely wrong and teams are able to come back, tie games, sometimes even take the lead. And there's been a consistency issue for the Lightning. I don't know what they need to do to fix that, but I think that's something that's becoming a little bit of a concern for me. Luckily, at the end of the day, the Lightning are winning 2 out of 3 periods, which usually ends up getting them the win. But that's something that's not been ideal, I think, for the Bolts. They need to be a little bit more consistent, but overall, still a really good game.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've seen over the season is they'll flash up that graphic on Fox Sports and it says, look, the Lightning are first or second. They're usually in the top five when it comes to outscoring their opponents in the second period. That's changed recently. And I'm not sure what that change is. Maybe it is the long change to the bench. Maybe it is miscommunication that, comes with the fact that they have to change more on the fly, all that good stuff. But they have had some real struggles when it comes to the second period. As you mentioned, the rest of the game, apart from that 2-minute stretch in the third and some of overtime, was actually really good. But we'll get in that in a little bit. One of the things that concerned me, and this was specifically related to the second and the third goal, more so the third goal for Dallas, was the lost faceoff. Lightning again were on the losing side of things. They only won 48% of their faceoffs tonight, which is still a decent number. You get it close to that 50-50 mark, but you want to be above that 50%. And when you lose key faceoffs, when the net is empty for the other team, you give your opponent more life, and you make your team start to scramble a little bit more. And we didn't necessarily see this on the second goal. The first goal, actually, I misspoke earlier. The first goal, when they gave up the power play goal, lost the faceoff. It ended up going into the back of their net, and they gave up a shorthanded goal or a power play goal, which they don't do that often. So that's the type of things where I'm looking at. Maybe you don't win 50% of your faceoffs, but you have to win the key situational faceoffs, or else your team is going to struggle. And they might lose games like this where they controlled most of the play, but in the end, they just failed during key situations, and that cost them the game.
Well, and look at it overtime as well. You know, you see those are super important faceoffs. The first team that's able to win that faceoff at the beginning of overtime, they control the puck right away and will often control the puck for the majority of the start of overtime. And at that point, one shot can end it all right there. So you're right. The Lightning have not been great on faceoffs. 48% is actually pretty good for the Lightning. Typically, they're a lot lower than that. So they have been a little bit better as of late, which is a good sign. But I think the Lightning, they just don't have that guy on their team that is really good in the faceoff circle. We've noticed that Steven Stamkos has been really good as of late. Michael, I can see your face. I know who you're thinking. You want Mitchell
Coming back
Stevens back
very soon.
because
Coming back very soon.
he's been really good in the faceoff circle, but unfortunately, he's still injured right now. Hopefully, he will be back soon. But maybe this is something the Lightning look into in the future. Obviously, they're not going to be able to make a deal trade for this right now because they don't have the cap space. So maybe they want to get somebody in the next couple of years that is that face-off guy. They really just don't have that, I feel like. Hopefully Cooper will start to do a practice of just face-offs at some point and really get that going. But you're right. A couple of those goals were on the face-off. That was one of the big reasons why the Stars were able to get those goals, especially at the end of the game. But, you know, it's just a minor thing for the Lightning for the most part. They have been getting better, which is good. And hopefully when Stevens is back, that won't be as much of an issue.
Yeah, and you mentioned the overtime face-off, which is something that we saw in when it comes to situational face-offs against Carolina in their first meeting. They lost 1-0. They didn't control the puck the entirety of overtime because they lost the opening face-off. Tonight, when they lost the opening face-off in overtime, they didn't control play for about 2 minutes, and they gave up a lot of good chances. Andre Vasilevsky stood on his head. That's the type of thing where I go, okay, if you win 40% of your faceoffs, it's not great. But if you win the situational faceoffs that night, I think you can really look at it as a success. So that's basically where my concern comes from.
Right, absolutely, and then that's I think that's a good point. But I think Michael, we should talk about some of the positives in this game because there were a lot from them. For starting off with that first period, the Lightning played a fantastic first period. They put a ton of shots in on net. They played really well overall. Braden Point got a goal in the back of the net. He did a great job of making a breakaway move there and sneaking the puck just through the 5 hole. So I really liked what I saw from the Bolts. They really got off to that good start. They had a bad game against Nashville. They weren't happy about that loss. They came out there and made sure they got things going right. That's really key for games is when you get off to that good start, you're in that right mindset now, and usually the rest of the game just starts to go better when you get off to those really good starts. It also helps out too when you start to fall back a little bit in the second period, and that way you're not actually losing, but the game's just tied. But great job in the first period. Lightning did a really good job.
Yeah, and I forget who said this during when I was covering the game, but they messaged me and they went, "When was the last time that you saw a team get 19 shots in a period or more and not get a power play?" And I didn't have an answer for them. I don't think I've ever seen that before. The Lightning weren't hungry. They were ready for this game. And it was a sight to see, a good sight to see when we saw last night's lackluster performance against Nashville. But they put that in the rearview mirror. And though they got outshot for the second and the third period, that first period was spectacular. And, the third period was good as well. But they haven't had a game like that. And Brian Ingblom said this, they haven't had a period like that in years. So that is the type of thing that you look for to try to get you on a good path for the game, especially coming off a back-to-back.
Absolutely. And then it was good to see them get off to that. And hopefully they can continue that now over these next couple of games. It's going to be a tough stretch for the Lightning. They got a lot of games coming up. They got another back to back coming up. They're playing a lot of games in a short amount of time because a lot of these games are the ones that had to be rescheduled from early on in the season because of COVID. Another player, though, I thought played a great game today, Michael, was Victor Hedman as he picked up his 500th career point, the fifth Bolt to do it in franchise history. He's the first defenseman to do it as well in Lightning franchise history. So big shout out to Victor Hedman. Took him a couple games to get there by the time he got to 499, but he finally did it today. A huge accomplishment for him. Victor Hedman just continues to be the best defender in the NHL and one of the best defenseman, I should say, of all time in Lightning franchise history.
Yeah, I think it's time that we start talking about, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, Victor Hedman as the greatest player in Lightning history. And I know that's a bit much, probably, for a lot of people because they grew up in the Vinny and the Marty era, and Stamkos has been so good for so long. But Victor Hedman's been just as good for just as long. And he came into the league one season after Steven Stamkos. He's been a defensive dynamo. He puts up points like a top six player on offense. Like there is no one in the league that can do what Victor Hedman can do as far as defense goes. And he had not necessarily a ton of points tonight. He only had one, but the key thing for him was that he stopped a ton of miscues for the Lightning, especially in that second period. Odd man rushes, breakaways, uh, just situations where they were not talking to each other. And he's a great mentor. You can see it when he plays with kids like Mikhail Sergachev and Cal Foote. He really brings the most out of those guys. And he's done that for such a long time. Congratulations to him. He joins the likes of Vinny, Marty, Steven, and Nikita as the only players in Lightning history with 500 career points. I really feel like talking about him brings about just how good he really is, but it kind of undersells how good he really is. You have to watch it, you have to experience the greatness.
It's true because he makes a lot of defensive plays. He's not always on the scoring sheet despite having 500 career points. That's really impressive for a defenseman. And you mentioned he's the best Bolt of all time. Michael, I think that's a conversation we're going to have to save for another video. So if you want to check that out, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so you don't miss that coming here in the next couple of days. Also, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. What is your favorite Victor Hedman moment from his career that he's hit 500 points? What's your favorite one? Let me know in the comments below. Michael, another player that I thought played really well was Pat Maroon. I thought he had a really good game today. He's been playing really well as of late. Even in that Nashville game, he had those two fights and got the team really fired up in that third period. Today, he made a great play to Matthew Joseph to get that second goal for the Lightning. He's been really good. I've been really happy with Pat Maroon. Again, he's a guy that doesn't show up on the score sheet all the time, but he plays a really gritty role and can really get that team fired up. Put another good game today.
I thought the entire fourth line was awesome.
True.
Pat Maroon was great, and the forechecking. Matthew Joseph was very good, not only with the goal, but one of the things that we talked about with Matthew Joseph, he was struggling to put pucks in the back of the net. He was struggling to just be a factor. Was that he was relying too much on his speed. He was not letting the game slow down for him, which is a lot of rookies' problems or a lot of young players' problems is they don't let the game slow down for them so they can adapt. Now, he's done that over the past couple of games, and I've found that to be his sweet spot. I think it helps that he's also playing on the wing in this game and not at center. He was good at center when he originally started, but he's a natural winger, and we saw that for the majority of this season when he's been on the wing. And then Ross Colton, man, what a guy Ross Colton is. What a player this kid is. He was 55% in the faceoff dot. He had that really nice forecheck with Pat Maroon on the Matthew Joseph goal, his first career assist, and that beautiful shootout goal, which you could say what you want about the shootout, but when you get plays like that, that is a showcase of talent right there that I don't think a lot of Lightning fans expected to see when Colton got called up. But he's been offensively gifted as well as defensively sound, which is exactly what the Lightning need out of their fourth line center role.
Yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic, and I definitely didn't expect him to have that beautiful shot in the shootout there. That was absolutely fantastic. Maybe another Braden Point in the making, who is he also had a goal in that shootout as well, and he's been one of the best when it comes to shootouts. And Ross Colton saying, "Hey, I'm here too. Maybe I'm really good at the shootouts." So really curious to see if that continues. Hopefully, we don't get too many more shootouts with games like this, but Ross Colton has been excellent. He's been by far one of the best rookies for the Lightning this year, especially. I really love to see what he's been doing. Hopefully that can continue. It's going to be tough for John Cooper when guys like Mitchell Steven comes back, and if you're having to sit Ross Colton, who's had an excellent start to the season, but he definitely deserves every opportunity right now. And speaking of rookies, Michael, there's just so many positives from this game because Lightning really did play a really good game, despite pushing that game into a shootout, which will hopefully doesn't have to happen again. But Cal Foote, he played a fantastic game tonight as well. He's really getting into his rhythm, it seems. Had a lot of good shots on net. He's making some good defensive plays as well. I really like what I see from Cal Foote. He's turning into a really good defenseman as well.
Yeah, that Cal Foote Mikhail Sergachev pairing I thought was, as a pairing, the Lightning's best. Victor Hedman was probably the Lightning's best player. You could say that every single night, except for Andre Vasilevsky. But Cal Foote and Mikhail Sergachev did things that I did not expect from them. Cal Foote was offensively in the rush. He was trying to put pucks on net. He had a couple of shots where I would have said, okay, maybe take a slap shot or maybe take a wrister right here or try to navigate around the bodies. But that comes with rookie experience. Mikhail Sergachev, on the other hand, was defensively dominant. He was blocking shots. He took a punishment today from the Dallas Stars. And when Foote made mistakes, Sergachev was right there to help him. And it's weird because Mikhail Sergachev is only 6 months older than Cal Foote, but he's the perfect mentor for Cal Foote. So if that is a line or a pair that really continues to grow and continues to develop, I think Lightning fans should be very excited for the top four next year. And they should be very excited for the top six this year.
No question about it. It's really good to see. We've been waiting for him to come up for a while, and he's finally getting his opportunity right now. So it's really exciting to see. Michael, my last positive from this game is despite 3 goals, I don't think many of them were really his fault. I thought Andre Vasilevsky, as always, put another solid game today. Wasn't his best game of the season, but, a good game nonetheless. That's really tough to stop some of those 6-on-5 opportunities when Dallas had the empty net, but he was solid in overtime. Made a lot of good stops there. I was a little worried there early on when Braden Point fell twice and thought Dallas was going to score. But Vasilevsky stood tall in overtime, made some great stops on the shootout as well to help the Lightning ultimately grab that win.
Yeah, Andre Vasilevsky is always the Lightning's most important player. And I think that Paul Driscoll from the Tampa Bay Times put this in perspective earlier today. He said that Curtis McElhinney, it's not really his fault when you look at things. Andre Vasilevsky, because he's so good, mask a lot of the problems that the Lightning have. And I think he did that today in overtime specifically, but also in that second period, where, yes, Dallas did score once in the second period, but Tampa did not play very well. And they probably could have had even more goals if it wasn't for the play of Andre Vasilevsky. He's the Lightning's most valuable player. I don't know what you want me to say. You could talk about Victor Hedman, Kucherov, Stamkos. There's a plethora of really, really solid talent on this team, but your starting goalie is your number one guy when it comes to value. And Andre Vasilevsky has been the best goalie in the league, and that is why the Tampa Bay Lightning, as far as tonight's win goes, are the top team in the entire NHL. So I love Vasilevsky because he has done so much, and maybe he has masked some of the problems that the Lightning have had, specifically in that second period and in that overtime. But sometimes you need a save from your goalie, and he's giving you those saves, which is all that you can ask for.
Absolutely. He's been fantastic. You love to see it. And, I know Chris Mackley has been tough for him. It just seems like for whatever reason, the team doesn't play well in front of him, but he's been solid as well. He's had a tough situation. But, Michael, it's going to be interesting coming up here in these next couple of games. The Lightning are going to be ready to take on the Chicago Blackhawks now back at home as well. And then we're playing the Florida Panthers, which I'm really excited for that game coming up on Sunday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Florida Panthers, number 2 team in the league right now because we knocked them off because we're that good. But that'll be a really fun game right now. Number 1 and number 2 team going at it. And one team that we've kind of struggled against has been the Florida Panthers. So I'm really excited to see how that game goes. That'll be a good one coming up here.
Yeah, two playoff worthy teams so far in the Blackhawks and the Panthers. I think both of these teams are going to spell challenges for the Lightning. Hopefully, the Lightning are up to the task. Florida, a little bit better than Chicago. So you got to be on your A game against the Panthers. And hopefully, they're on their A game against the Blackhawks, but they do have their problems. Jake, anything else positive or negative from this game?
No, that just about does it. It's a really solid game overall for the Bolts. Ideally, we don't have to let up 2 goals and go into overtime next time. But other than that, great game for the Bolts. Nice to be back in the win column. Tough stretch coming up. So let's keep it going and keep the good times rolling now for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yes, definitely keep the good times rolling, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Quick Strikes, another winning episode of Quick Strikes. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications. Follow us on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Comment either below this post when the game recap is up or down below on this video. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and make sure to comment on our posts during the games. We cover the games live on Twitter. Usually I'm doing it. Jake does it sometimes. We got all these people in the Baybolt staff that are going to help us out over the coming weeks and months. But guys, that'll do it for us here. For Jake Ricker, my name is Michael Wax. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, the Tampa Bay Lightning defeated the Dallas Stars and are still defending Stanley Cup champions.
Go Bolts.